The Great Pyramid of Giza. You hear that name and what comes to mind? Aliens? Lost technology? For centuries, people have looked at it and thought, there's just no way. But the truth? The real story is actually way more incredible. It's about what people can do with clever ideas, some basic physics, and a whole lot of grit to pull off something that seems totally impossible. So let's just picture this for a second. You're on the Giza Plateau. It's 4,500 years ago. And what do you have to work with? No cranes, no iron, no wheels, just copper, stone, wood, and rope. That's pretty much your entire toolkit. And with that, your job is to build the tallest thing anyone on Earth has ever seen, a monument that's supposed to stand forever. I mean, where do you even begin? Just to wrap your head around the sheer scale of this thing, the whole pyramid weighs in at 6 million tons. Think about it this way. That's like stacking 16 Empire State Buildings on top of each other. And every single stone, every single pound of that weight had to be cut out of the earth, dragged across the desert, and lifted into place, all by hand. And it's not like it was one giant rock, right? We're talking about an estimated 2.3 million individual blocks. Most of them weigh about 2 tons apiece. That's a car. So they had to move 2.3 million cars, basically, and then stack them up with mind-boggling precision. So yeah, seems like an impossible task, doesn't it? And before you can even think about building up, you have to start with the ground. You have to lay a perfect foundation. Today, builders would pull out lasers, all sorts of high-tech gear to get a level base. The Egyptians had, well, none of that. And yet, the base of the Great Pyramid is so perfectly level, it's almost unbelievable. Across 13 acres, that's like 8 football fields, it's off by less than an inch. So how on earth did they pull that off? The answer is it's pure genius in its simplicity. They dug a grid of trenches into the rock right across the whole site. Then they just filled them with water. And what does water always do? It finds its own level. Boom. They had a perfectly flat reference line across acres of uneven rock. They just had to chisel everything down to that line. It just goes to show they were absolute masters of using basic physics to solve these huge, huge problems. All right, so the foundation is perfect. Now you need the building blocks, millions and millions of them. That meant turning a nearby quarry into the powerhouse for this whole operation. Okay, before we go any further, let's bust one of the biggest myths out there. You see it in movies all the time, that the pyramids were built by slaves. It's just not true. We've found their tombs, we've found their graffiti. This was a highly organized workforce of about 20,000 skilled workers. They were drafted, sure, but they were housed, fed well, and even paid for their labor. And you know what their payment often was? Bread and beer, the cornerstones of the Egyptian diet. So how do you cut giant blocks of stone without any steel tools? Well, check this out. First, they'd cut these deep channels into the limestone with copper saws. Then, they'd jam dry wooden wedges into those channels. And here comes the magic trick. They'd pour water all over the wood. The wedges soak it up, they expand with this incredible, unstoppable force, and crack. A perfect 2-ton block just pops right off the quarry wall. It's simple, it's repeatable, and they could do it on an industrial scale. Okay, so you've got your 2-ton block. Awesome. Now what? You've got to move it across the desert. And here's the next big problem. Wheels are totally useless in the sand. They just dig in and get stuck. Your biggest enemy here is friction. And once again, the solution is so simple, it's almost beautiful. We've seen it in ancient drawings and we've tested it ourselves. All they had to do was wet the sand right in front of the sled. That little bit of water makes the sand firm and it cuts the friction, get this, in half. Just like that, you need half as many people to pull the exact same weight. Incredible. And this is where the story gets really human, which I love. Archaeologists have actually found graffiti on the blocks with the names of the work crews. You get names like the Friends of Khufu, which is nice, but my absolute favorite has to be the Drunkards of Menkaure. It's just this amazing little peek back in time, reminding you that these were real people. They had team names, they had a sense of humor, they were proud of their work. Okay, so the blocks are at the construction site. That's a huge win. But now comes the biggest challenge of all. How do you get them almost 500 feet straight up into the air? Now, for a long time, people thought they used one massive straight ramp, but the math just doesn't work. The ramp would have ended up being bigger and heavier than the pyramid itself. So the leading theory now is a huge ramp that actually spiraled around the outside of the pyramid as it grew taller. And to make sliding those giant stones easier, they'd slick it down with a wet gypsum mortar. Super clever. But, the real genius of this thing isn't just what you see on the outside. Deep inside the pyramid, they were building something else entirely, a kind of complex machine, all designed to protect the pharaoh's final resting place. Forever. Way down in the heart of the pyramid is the king's chamber. And this room is different. It's not limestone, it's made of solid granite, which is way harder and had to be brought from hundreds of miles away. The ceiling of this chamber is made of 9 granite beams. Some of them weigh up to 70 tons. 70 tons! That is literally the weight of the space shuttle, and they had to lift that by hand. So how did they do it? The key was a brilliantly simple invention called a rocker. Basically, you put the giant beam on a curved wooden sled. Then, with long levers, hundreds of men could rock it up, just an inch or 2 at a time. After each little lift, they'd slide some blocks underneath to hold it in place, reset the levers, and do it all over again. Lift, wedge, repeat. It's a perfect example of using mechanical advantage to turn one impossible task into 1,000 manageable ones. So they get these 70-ton beams into place, but now those beams have to hold up millions of tons of pyramid pressing down on them. A flat roof would just be crushed instantly. So what did the builders do? They built 5 empty attics stacked right on top of the king's chamber. These are called relieving chambers, and what they do is pure architectural magic. They act like a hidden A-frame, taking all that crushing weight and diverting it away from the chamber and down into the solid mass of the pyramid. It's the reason that room is still standing today. Okay, the inside is finished, the main structure is up, now it's time for the grand finale, the last and probably the most dangerous part of the whole job, finishing the very top. Can you even imagine? You're working on this tiny little platform, nearly 500 feet up in the air. It's windy, there are no safety nets, no harnesses. That's what it was like for the guys placing the final stones. The very top piece was a special capstone called a pyramidion, and it was probably covered in solid gold so it would flash in the sunlight. But even then, they weren't finished. They then had to work their way down, covering the entire pyramid in these perfectly cut, polished white limestone casing stones. It would have looked like one smooth, gleaming white mountain. It's so important to remember that the rough, stepped pyramid we see today is really just a skeleton. Back in its day, it was a smooth, polished, dazzling white beacon. They say it shone so brightly you could see it all the way from the mountains in Israel. So what happened? Well, in the year 1303, a huge earthquake shook the whole area, loosening all those beautiful casing stones. And after that, they were, recycled, carted off to build new buildings in nearby Cairo. So, for more than 4,500 years, the Great Pyramid has just been there, a silent witness to everything. But the incredible thing is, even after all this time, it's not done telling us its secrets. Once the pharaoh was inside, the pyramid was sealed shut, and for millennia, what was truly inside was a total mystery. But we're still finding things out. I mean, just a few years ago in 2017, scientists used this crazy technology, cosmic ray imaging, to scan the pyramid, and they found something unbelievable. A massive hidden void, a chamber as long as a jumbo jet that nobody ever knew existed. And the purpose of it? We still have no idea. So when you look at the Great Pyramid, remember it was built without iron, without wheels, without cranes. It was built with a kind of practical genius we're still trying to fully understand. Every new discovery, like this mysterious hidden chamber, just proves how much we still don't know, and it forces you to ask the really big question. Was this just a tomb for a king? Or was it something more? Was it a kind of machine perfectly aligned with the stars, designed not just to house a body, but to launch a soul into the heavens?